My name's Ryan. I'm 32, and up until about 3 years ago, I thought I had a decent relationship with my family. Not perfect, definitely not close, but functional. We had our holidays, the occasional birthday get-together, and the expected flurry of group texts around Christmas. Nothing too deep. We weren't the kind of family that shared emotions or asked real questions. Everything stayed surface level: jobs, weather, sports, who's bringing what to Thanksgiving. And honestly, I was fine with that. I'm the youngest of three. My brother Tyler is the oldest, lives across the country, has a family of his own, shows up when he has to, and otherwise stays out of the drama. Then there's my sister, Courtney, 3 years older than me, golden child, everyone's favorite, and completely oblivious to how much damage she leaves behind when she decides she's the main character. Growing up, she always got away with everything. She'd lie, cry, throw fits, play the victim, and somehow come out of every situation looking like the one who was wronged. Meanwhile, I got branded the moody one, the quiet one, the one who needs to open up more. And maybe that's true. I've never been loud, never been good at arguing my side in the moment. I always just took it, then went to my room and stewed in silence. My parents, well, they didn't help. Mom is the textbook definition of a peacekeeper. Thinks everything can be fixed with a hug and a cup of tea. Conflict makes her short-circuit. Dad is more blunt. Doesn't yell, but his disappointment is like a slow poison. He's never once said he was proud of me. Not even when I got promoted, not when I bought my first home, not when I got through a rough breakup and still showed up to every family event with a smile on my face. But Courtney? She could say the word anxiety and get coddled for a month. I'm not exaggerating. She cried during Christmas once because someone made a joke about her burnt cookies, and suddenly Mom was banning sarcasm from family gatherings. Like we were supposed to pretend nothing was ever wrong. For years, I let it slide. That's what you do with family, right? You bite your tongue. You tell yourself they mean well. You ignore the little slights because that's just how they are. I thought I could live with that arrangement. Until the day Courtney's marriage blew up, and she made me her scapegoat in a way that blindsided me so hard. I still replay it sometimes, trying to figure out if I missed something earlier. If there were signs. If I could have stopped it. But before we get to that explosion, I need to go back to the smaller things. The things that chipped away at me over the years until there was nothing left to hold on to. Because the truth is, families don't break apart in one day. They crack. Slowly. Quietly. And it starts with stuff no one else notices. Like the time I brought my girlfriend to Thanksgiving, and Courtney introduced herself by saying, "Oh, you're with Ryan? That's cute. Not nice to meet you. Not welcome." Just that smug little smirk and the implication that dating me was some sort of charity project. Or the time I graduated college with honors, and at the dinner afterward, Courtney spent 20 minutes talking about how she almost went back for her master's, but just didn't feel stimulated by academia. No one asked her. No one brought it up. But somehow the conversation still became hers. I sat there picking at my salad while Dad nodded like she'd just cured something. Then there was the baby shower. Hers, obviously. A big event. She wanted it at Mom and Dad's house, and I helped set everything up: the tables, the decorations, the food, even the stupid balloon art she found on Pinterest. I didn't complain. I never do. But when she stood up to do her little speech, thanking everyone, she skipped over me entirely. Thanked her husband, her best friend, even her college roommate who showed up an hour late and left before gifts. But me? Not a word. When I asked her about it later, just to clear the air, she blinked at me like I was speaking another language and said, "Oh, don't be so sensitive. I didn't think you'd care." That line. I didn't think you'd care. That's Courtney in a nutshell. She does whatever she wants, says whatever she wants, and if it hurts you, well, that's your fault for caring. She's emotional. She's stressed. She didn't mean it. And somehow, everyone always buys it. Mom pats her back. Dad changes the subject. Tyler shrugs and says, "That's just Court being Court." By the time she got married, I was already starting to feel like an outsider in my own family. Not on the surface. We still had dinners and birthday cakes and group photos. But inside, I was done trying. Done fighting for space in a house that never made room for me. I showed up, smiled when I had to, and left early when I could. Then came the night it all started to unravel. Her marriage was only 2 years in at that point, but something had shifted. At family gatherings, her husband, Sean, looked tired. Like really tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from work or sleepless baby nights, but from walking on eggshells for too long. He barely spoke, and when he did, Courtney would cut him off or correct him in that same sing-song voice she used when we were kids, like he was just a misbehaving student in her classroom. At first, I thought maybe they were just going through something. I kept my head down, stayed out of it. But Sean started pulling me aside more often, asking about work, my car, the weather, random stuff, just to talk. One time, he asked me what kind of music I liked, and when I answered, he said, "Thanks." No one's asked me a real question in weeks. I didn't know what to say to that. That summer, Mom organized a 4th of July barbecue. Everyone was there, extended family, friends, neighbors. Courtney and Sean showed up late, and she was already in a mood. Something about the heat, the traffic, the fact that we hadn't saved her a good chair. Sean trailed behind her like a ghost, holding the diaper bag and trying not to drop anything. The night was tense. You know when everyone's smiling, but nothing feels right? That was the vibe. Courtney snapped at Sean 3 times before dinner. Once because he forgot to bring the pacifier, once because he used the wrong fork to serve salad, and once, loudly, because he interrupted her while she was telling a story about work. I should have stepped in, said something, but I didn't. I never do. Later that evening, after most people had gone home and the leftover burgers were cold, Courtney cornered me by the garage. She had that look, eyes wide, lips tight, like she was winding up for something. "You know," she said, "you could try being more supportive." I blinked. Supportive of what? Of me. Of my marriage. "Sean says you've been weird with him lately. Like cold." That was a lie. Sean had literally just asked me about my favorite hiking trails. But I didn't call her out. I just said, I didn't know there was an issue. She rolled her eyes. "You never know anything. That's the problem. You just sit there and judge everyone like you're above it all. But you're not, Ryan. You're not." And then she walked away. I didn't bring it up to anyone. Just went home, sat in my car, and stared at the dashboard for a full 10 minutes. I felt like I'd been sucker punched by someone who hadn't even swung. I didn't understand why she was mad or what I'd done, only that somehow it was my fault again, and that no one would believe me if I said otherwise. It wasn't the last time she pulled something like that, but it was the first time I started seriously asking myself, what if she's not just dramatic? What if she's dangerous? What if all those years of slights and jabs and guilt trips weren't just accidental? What if she knows exactly what she's doing? I didn't have an answer then, but I'd get one. Soon. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It never does. It came in pieces, like little shards of glass that don't hurt right away, but start to sting once you realize you're bleeding. And by the time I noticed, I was cut open in places I didn't even know were exposed. After that July cookout, things got worse. Subtler, in a way, but worse. Courtney stopped inviting me to things directly. Family dinners, birthday parties, even my niece's baptism. I'd only hear about them secondhand through Mom. Always with a last-minute text that sounded more like a formality than an actual invitation. "Hey Ree, not sure if you're free, but we're doing a little something for Emma on Sunday." No pressure though. No pressure. Right. Every time I showed up, I felt like I'd walked into a room halfway through a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Everyone acted normal on the surface, smiles, small talk, paper plates with too much potato salad. But underneath it all, I could feel it. The distance. The way people looked at me just a beat too long. The way conversations would pause when I walked in and resume in a different tone once I sat down. And Sean, he'd all but disappeared into himself. He used to make an effort. He'd crack a joke, offer me a drink, talk about football. But now he barely made eye contact. He just stayed close to Courtney, did what she told him, and laughed too hard at her stories. At first, I assumed he'd chosen her side. I mean, of course he had. He was married to her. But something about the way he moved felt off. Like he was performing. Like he was being watched even when no one was watching. It wasn't until Emma's 3rd birthday party that things came to a head. It was held at a rented space. One of those indoor play centers with foam pits, slides, and overpriced pizza. I brought a thoughtful gift, a custom picture book with Emma's name in the story. I even wrote a note inside the front cover. But when I handed it to Courtney, she barely glanced at it before passing it off to one of her friends with a tight smile. "Oh, that's sweet. Thanks," she said. Then she turned back to her phone. I stood there like an idiot for a few seconds, thinking she'd say something else. She didn't. Later, During cake, she made a toast to everyone who's really been there for us this year. She thanked her in-laws, her co-workers, her best friend. Hell, even her neighbor who once babysat in a pinch. But me? Nothing. Not even a nod. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, clapped, and left early. The next day, I got a voicemail from Mom. "Hey, sweetheart, Courtney said you seemed a little off at the party yesterday. She's worried about you. I think maybe you should call her, clear the air." Clear the air. Like I was a storm cloud ruining her perfect sky. I didn't call. A month passed. Then another. The silence stretched. No one reached out, and I didn't either. I was tired of being the one to fix things when I hadn't broken them. Tired of having to tiptoe around my sister's moods like they were sacred relics. Then came the bombshell. It was Christmas Eve. We were all at my parents' house, doing the usual awkward gift exchange. Courtney was on edge. I could tell the moment she walked in. Her jaw was tight, her smile too wide. Sean looked even worse. Pale, twitchy, like he'd had too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Presents were opened. Small talk was made. I gave my parents a framed photo from their wedding day that I'd restored and printed. They teared up. Courtney gave them matching wine glasses with her daughter's face etched on them. "They're so cute, right?" she beamed. I figured we could all drink from them during Emma's birthday toast next month. I was about to ask if I was invited, sarcastically, of course, but I bit my tongue. Then Courtney stood up. "I actually wanted to say something," she said, clinking her glass. "Just a quick note of appreciation." Here we go, I thought. But she didn't thank anyone. She looked at me, and what she said next will stay with me until the day I die. "You know," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "this year's been really hard for me. Sean and I have been going through things, and I've done a lot of thinking. About family, about support, about honesty." I felt everyone's eyes shift toward her, then toward me. My stomach tightened. "And I think it's time to stop pretending everything's okay," she said, tears suddenly welling up. "Because the truth is, I wouldn't be in this situation if Ryan hadn't inserted himself into my marriage." A pause. Silence. My heart dropped. "I didn't want to say anything before," she went on, sniffing dramatically. "But you all deserve to know. Ryan's the reason Sean and I are separating. He's the reason my husband left me." There was a sharp intake of breath. Mom's, I think. Dad looked confused. Tyler blinked like he couldn't process what he'd just heard. I stood up slowly. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Courtney turned to me with a look that could curdle milk. "Don't pretend. You've been poisoning him against me for months. You act all quiet and innocent, but I know what you've been doing. The little comments, the texts, the manipulation. He told me everything, Ryan." Sean didn't say a word. Not one. He just stared at the floor like a child caught in the middle of a custody battle. "Are you serious?" I asked louder now. "What comments? What manipulation?" "I trusted you," she cried, wiping a perfectly dry cheek. "I trusted you with my family, and you undermined me. I'm done pretending you're a good person." I looked at my parents. At Tyler. At Sean. No one said anything. That's what killed me the most. Not Courtney's lies. Not her crocodile tears. But the fact that in that moment, when I was being publicly gutted by my sister, no one stood up for me. No one asked for proof. No one said, "Wait, this doesn't sound like Ryan." They just sat there, watching, waiting. I left before dessert. No one stopped me. No one called after. Not that night. Not the next day. I spent Christmas alone for the first time in my life. The silence afterward was deafening. No one texted. Not even Tyler. Not even Mom. I checked in once, out of habit. Sent a short message. "Can we talk?" Mom responded 3 days later. "I think it's best we all take some time to cool off." Cool off. Like I'd started a fire by existing. From that point on, I was cut off. No invites. No updates. Nothing. I became the family pariah overnight, thanks to one unhinged accusation that no one even tried to verify. And Sean, gone. Moved out. Blocked me on everything. I didn't even get a chance to ask him what the hell had happened. I spiraled for a bit. Wondered if I had done something wrong. If I'd somehow made Sean uncomfortable. If maybe my quiet presence had been interpreted as judgment. I replayed every conversation, every gathering, every look. But there was nothing. Nothing to justify what Courtney did. It was like she'd been waiting for an excuse to burn me alive. And then, months later, when I'd started to forget the sound of their voices, I got an email. From Sean. The subject line read, She lied about everything. And when I opened it, well, let's just say everything changed. The email sat in my inbox for 6 days before I opened it. Not because I didn't want to know. Trust me, I wanted to know more than anything. But something in me was afraid that whatever was in that message would finally confirm what I'd been trying not to accept, that the people I'd loved my whole life, the ones I bent myself backward for, had already decided who I was without ever asking me. That email felt like a door, and once I opened it, there'd be no going back. So I stared at it for almost a week. Every day, I'd hover over the subject line. She lied about everything. 5 words. 1 sentence. A promise and a threat wrapped in pixels. When I finally clicked it open, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some long manifesto from Sean or a voice recording with a tearful confession. It was 3 paragraphs. Plain. Tired. It read, "Hey Ryan, I'm sorry it's taken me this long to reach out. I owe you a massive apology. You didn't deserve what happened at Christmas. You never said anything about Courtney. You never interfered. She made all that up. I left because of her, not you. There's a lot more to say, and I understand if you don't want to hear it. But I thought you should at least know the truth. I see now how isolated you must have felt for years. I'm so sorry I didn't say something sooner. Sean." I read it 6 times. Then I sat in the dark and cried harder than I have in my adult life. It wasn't even about vindication. It was the sudden release of carrying the weight of something I hadn't done, being punished like I was guilty, talked about like I was toxic, discarded like I was disposable. All for nothing. No apology from Courtney. No message from my parents. But Sean had finally confirmed what I'd felt for months but couldn't prove. That she made it up. That she'd weaponized her own divorce to destroy me. That I was right to feel what I felt. But here's the part that really broke me. It didn't change anything. Not immediately, anyway. Even with that email, I still had no family. I still wasn't invited to Easter. I still didn't get a single happy birthday text. I could have printed Sean's message and mailed it to every relative I had. But what would that do? People believe what they want to believe. And my family had made their choice. They'd rather live in Courtney's world than face what she actually is. So yeah, I hit bottom. For a while, I stopped going out. Stopped responding to texts from friends. I barely went to work. I was remote anyway, so no one really noticed. I ordered takeout, let laundry pile up, slept until noon, stared at the wall. Everything felt heavy and pointless. I'd lost more than my sister. I'd lost my history, my childhood, the context of who I was. Because when your family turns on you, it doesn't just hurt in the present, it warps the past. Suddenly you start wondering, were all those years of smiles just fake? Were the birthday cards signed with love because they meant it? Or because that's what you're supposed to do? Did they ever really know me? And if the answer's no, then who am I really? It took time. And I don't mean that as some tidy resolution. It wasn't a movie montage with upbeat music and quick cuts of me jogging, cleaning the apartment, and making smoothies. It was slow, messy, uncomfortable. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's quiet. No one's watching. No one's waiting for you to perform. And in that silence, I finally started asking myself questions I'd never dared to ask. What do I actually want? What kind of life am I building? Who do I become if I stop trying to please people who don't care if I exist? I started small. Therapy. That was the first real step. I'd always brushed off therapy like it was for people with real problems. But now I had a gaping hole in the middle of my chest and no idea how to patch it. So I booked a session. Then another. Then another. I talked about Courtney. About the years of quiet humiliation. About being the background character in my own family. About the email. About how guilty I still felt, even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. My therapist, Marla, never once told me what to do. She just kept asking questions. Pushing. Digging. Helping me connect dots I'd never seen before. Like how I always downplayed my own needs because, growing up, the only way to survive was to avoid becoming a problem. Or how I over-explained everything because I'd been trained to defend myself before I was even accused. It was exhausting, but freeing. At the same time, I started spending more time on things that I actually liked, just for me. I went back to hiking, bought a decent camera, and started taking photos. Nature became my escape. Quiet, neutral, forgiving. No sides to take. No lies. Just sky and rock and dirt and wind. I also picked up freelance work, small web design projects, helping small businesses with branding, even writing copy for online stores. It gave me something to pour into, something that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. Funny enough, that little side hustle started to grow. Within 6 months, I had more clients than I could manage alone. I left my corporate job, launched my own branding consultancy, built a clean, modern site, got referrals, started charging real rates. I worked out of coffee shops, wore sweatpants, made my own schedule, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. Not in a dramatic, burn everything down kind of way, but in a quiet, steady kind of way. I was living on my terms. No family dinners to navigate. No Courtney to dodge. No need to explain myself to anyone who already decided I wasn't worth hearing. I even started dating again, carefully, slowly. I met someone named Eliza through a hiking group. She was sharp, funny, incredibly observant. The kind of person who notices when someone needs space, but also knows when to gently nudge them out of it. We talked about everything, eventually, even my family. And when I told her the whole Courtney situation, she didn't try to fix it. She didn't say, "But they're your family." She just said, "That sounds awful. I'm sorry you went through that." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until I did. Around that time, Sean sent me another message. Longer this time. He explained that Courtney had been unraveling since the moment they had their daughter, that she'd accused multiple people of turning him against her, that she lied constantly, about little things, then big things, about who said what, about how people treated her, always playing the victim, always rewriting reality so she came out on top. She can't handle accountability, he wrote. So she twists everything until it's someone else's fault. That was the moment it clicked. She didn't just lie about me because she hated me. She lied because she needed to. In her world, there always has to be a villain. And the only thing more convenient than making her husband the bad guy was making me the mastermind behind it. It wasn't personal. And yet it was. Because I was the easy target. The quiet one. The one who wouldn't fight back. Until now. I didn't respond to Sean's second message right away. I let it sit. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say, or if I wanted to say anything at all. But eventually, I did write back. Not to argue. Not to ask questions. Just this. Thanks for telling me. I appreciate the honesty. It matters. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I forwarded the original email, the one with the subject line "She lied about everything," to someone else. One person. My brother, Tyler. No explanation. Just the email. He didn't reply that day. Or the next. And for a while, I figured maybe he was like the rest. Maybe it was easier for him to pretend the lie never happened. But then, a week later, my phone rang. It was Tyler. And what he said changed everything. When Tyler called, I didn't answer on the first ring. Or the second. I stared at my phone like it was some kind of mirage, like my brother's name showing up on the screen was part of a weird dream I hadn't finished yet. After everything. The silence, the abandonment, the absence of even a single "you okay?" text. Why now? But I answered. Because even after all that, a small, stupid part of me still hoped he might have finally seen the truth. "Hey," I said. There was a pause. Not an awkward one. More like the wait before impact kind. Then he sighed and said, "I read the email." I didn't respond. Not yet. I had a feeling, he added. For a while now. I just didn't want to deal with it. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. "I'm not going to pretend like I handled it well," he continued. "I should have reached out. I should have asked you what really happened. I was just tired, man. Tired of the drama. I figured, if I stayed out of it, it'd blow over." "And you figured it was easier to let me take the hit," I said quietly. There was another pause. "Yeah," he admitted. "I did. That honesty hit harder than any fake apology ever could have. And somehow, it softened me, just a little." "So now what?" I asked. "You want to pretend nothing happened? Or are you calling because you actually want to do something about it?" He let out a long breath. "I want to fix it. If I can." I didn't trust him. Not fully. But I also didn't hang up. Because after months of silence, someone was finally cracking the narrative Courtney had built around me like armor. And I wasn't going to waste the opportunity. We talked for an hour that night. Tyler filled in some blanks I hadn't even known were missing. Apparently, after Sean left, Courtney spun a whole new version of the story. She told my parents I'd been emotionally manipulative, that I'd fed Sean lies to create division in her marriage. She claimed I'd been secretly bitter and jealous for years, that I hated seeing her happy, that I'd always resented her role in the family and wanted to ruin what she had. And they believed her. Because why wouldn't they? I'd always been quiet, detached, the odd one out. It wasn't a stretch for them to imagine I'd turned cold and vindictive. But now, with Sean's email, Tyler couldn't ignore the cracks anymore. She's spiraling, he said. She's not the same person she used to be. Or maybe she is, and I just didn't want to see it. It didn't feel like enough. But it was something. And something was all I needed to get started. Because that conversation, the rawness, the honesty, lit something in me that had been dormant for far too long. I didn't want to be vindicated quietly anymore. I wanted them all to see what they'd done. And more importantly, I wanted them to feel it. That's when I started planning. Not out of spite. Not out of some cartoonish desire to get revenge. But because for the first time in my life, I was done playing defense. I was going to hit back. Smartly. Quietly. And with receipts. The first thing I did was start documenting everything. I compiled every message I had from Sean. I went back through old texts, emails, photos, anything that showed my history with Courtney and the rest of the family. Moments of her undermining me, of me being there for her. Evidence that I had always shown up, always stayed neutral, always been the peacekeeper. Then I started reaching out to people. Not mom or dad. Not yet. I went to the fringe first. Aunt Linda, mom's sister. Always kind to me. Never fully bought into Courtney's dramatics. Uncle James, dad's cousin. Big on family unity, but also the kind of guy who respected facts. Even a couple of old family friends who'd been around long enough to see how things really played out. I didn't send long, angry rants. I sent Sean's email. Simple. Clean. Followed by, I'm sharing this because the version of me that's been circulating in the family isn't real. I didn't ask for this drama, but I'm done pretending I'm okay with how I've been treated. This is the truth. Do with it what you will. And the responses? They started pouring in. Some were awkward, some apologetic, some shocked. But most of them had the same tone. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I wish I'd reached out sooner. They started talking amongst themselves. I knew that because a few of them circled back to me with updates. Apparently, Aunt Linda confronted my mom. Asked her outright if she'd seen the email. Mom said no. Courtney had convinced her it was faked. Sean's actual words, according to Aunt Linda, were dismissed as probably manipulated by Ryan. I wanted to scream. But instead, I got strategic. If Courtney was going to claim the email was fake, I needed proof it wasn't. So I called Sean. He answered on the third ring. I didn't even bother with small talk. She's saying the email's fake, I said. He sighed. Of course she is. Can you confirm it's real? In writing. There was a pause. Then, yeah, I'll send a signed statement. With the date, my contact info, everything. And he did. That same night. A short letter, half a page. But it was bulletproof. It stated clearly that the original email came from him, unedited, and that everything he wrote in it was true. He also added a few new details, like how Courtney used to snoop through his phone, delete messages, and then accuse him of hiding things. He said she had a pattern of weaponizing emotions to isolate people. I attached the statement to a follow-up message. And this time, I sent it to my parents. No introduction. No pleading. Just the PDF. And then I waited. Days passed. No response. I wasn't surprised. But it still burned. Tyler texted me 3 days later. They saw it. Dad's upset. Mom's crying a lot. Courtney's doubling down. I asked if they'd said anything about me. He replied, not yet. But I think they're starting to wonder. Good. That was all I needed. Because I wasn't done. Courtney's narrative had worked because it was sealed in a bubble. She controlled the air. Controlled the version of events that circulated within our family. But what happens when that bubble pops? When the people she needs the most, the ones she uses as mirrors, start questioning her reflection. That's when I got the idea for the final piece of my setup. Something public. Not dramatic. Not cruel. Just honest. I started writing a letter. An open letter. Addressed to no one. But written as if everyone I grew up with would read it. I kept it calm. Measured. I didn't insult Courtney or call her names. I didn't rant. I just laid out the timeline. What happened at Christmas? The accusations. The fallout. The email. The proof. And then I ended it with a paragraph that took me 2 hours to write. If you believed her, I don't blame you. I was quiet. I let things slide. I didn't correct the record when I should have. But that doesn't make her story true. It just means I was too tired to fight back. Until now. If you've already decided who I am, that's your right. But I won't keep apologizing for things I didn't do. I won't sit quietly while someone else rewrites my story. Not anymore. I posted it on my personal blog, then linked to it on my social media. I hadn't posted anything in months, maybe a year. So when that notification went out, people clicked. They read it, and they shared it. Not thousands of times. I'm not famous, but enough. Enough that it reached extended family, distant cousins, high school friends, even a few coworkers from years back who remembered seeing Courtney at office holiday parties. The ripple was small, but it was steady. And then, one night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot. A message from Courtney to someone named Rachel, a mutual cousin. In it, she ranted, "He's trying to make me look crazy. He's manipulating people again. This is exactly what he did to Sean." And that was all the confirmation I needed. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't scared. She was losing control. And Courtney without control? That's when the cracks start to show. And I had every intention of watching them widen. Because the setup was complete. The pieces were in place. All I needed now was the right moment to pull the trigger. The opportunity came faster than I expected. 3 weeks after I published my open letter and forwarded Sean's email to my parents, Courtney made the one mistake narcissists always make. She overplayed her hand. See, she'd been controlling the family narrative for so long that she assumed she still had the same power. She thought everyone still believed every word she said, or at the very least, feared calling her out. But the email, the open letter, my silence, it unsettled her. She couldn't figure out my next move, and that scared her more than anything. So she went on the offensive. Courtney threw herself a pity party. A real one. She called it Emma's Healing Weekend. But it was all about her. She rented out a local lodge and invited a bunch of extended family, claiming it was a supportive family bonding event after a traumatic divorce. Tyler called me 2 days before and said, "She's trying to get ahead of something. She's scared." "Good. Are you going?" I asked. "Yeah. I need to see what she says," he replied. "You?" I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Oh, I'll be there. But not how she expects." See, while Courtney was planning her emotional PR weekend, I was finalizing something of my own. I'd hired a lawyer. Not to sue. Not yet. But to write a formal cease and desist letter, just in case she ever repeated the lie that I was the reason Sean left. Slander is slander. And with Sean's written statement, I had leverage. But I wasn't planning to send it. At least, not unless I needed to. Instead, I had a better idea. One that involved a different kind of public record. At Emma's Healing Weekend, Courtney stood in front of the fire pit with her arms wide like some grief-soaked prophet, talking about how betrayal comes from the people you love most, and not all wounds are visible. My cousin Rachel recorded the whole thing on her phone and sent it to me, along with the group chat Courtney had created titled Family Reclaiming Joy. I waited until the weekend was over. Then I struck. The following Monday, I drafted an email to every single person who'd attended. Subject line: "Before you accept her story, read this." The body of the email was short, measured. "Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing okay after the weekend. I wasn't invited, but I heard it was quite the emotional event. Before you walk away thinking you know what really happened between Courtney and me, or between Courtney and Sean, I thought it might be time to share the full picture." Attached is a verified statement from Sean himself, along with my own account of what happened. These aren't opinions. These are facts. No drama. Just the truth. You don't have to respond. You don't have to choose sides. But if you're going to believe someone, I'd prefer it be based on actual events, not just performance. Ryan. And I attached everything. The original email. Sean's signed statement. A link to the blog post. Screenshots of text between Courtney and me that showed how calm I'd been, even when she was at her worst. I hit send. The fallout hit like a storm. Rachel texted me first. "OH my God. People are losing it. She told everyone you harassed Sean." Aunt Linda called the next morning. Her voice was shaking. "Ryan, I didn't know. I truly didn't know." She lied right to my face. Then Tyler. She flipped out. Full meltdown. She said you hacked Sean's email and fabricated the statement. Dad asked her to show proof. She couldn't. I imagined that scene and let myself smile, just a little. She screamed at Mom, he added. Said if she didn't take her side, she'd cut her off completely. And Mom? I asked. A pause. She didn't say anything. She just left the room. That told me everything I needed to know. The next part was quiet. Slower. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to make a scene. I let my silence speak for me. One by one, people started reaching out. A few relatives apologized outright. Some said they were ashamed they hadn't questioned her sooner. A few tried to play neutral. I let them. I wasn't looking to rebuild what we had. That bridge was burned. But what I did want? Accountability. And I got it. 2 weeks after the email, Dad called me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Ryan. I read everything. He paused, then cleared his throat. I'm sorry. I should have asked you for your side. I should have been better. Your sister's not well. We see that now. I didn't call him back, but I saved the voicemail, just in case. The final blow came when Sean did something I hadn't asked for, didn't expect, and will never forget. He posted his statement publicly, on his own social media. No tags, no drama, just, there's been a lot of confusion and misinformation about why my marriage ended. I kept quiet out of respect, but I've decided to clarify. Ryan had nothing to do with it. He never interfered, never manipulated me. The choices I made were mine. The reasons I left were personal and deeply related to my own experiences in the marriage. I apologize to anyone who believed otherwise. You were misled, and Ryan deserves better. And with that, the final thread Courtney had been clinging to snapped. She couldn't scream that I was behind it, because this time, Sean had spoken. Openly. Permanently. The narrative collapsed. Family members distanced themselves. Some stopped talking to her entirely. She tried one last stunt, posted a tearful video about being betrayed by blood, said she was being ganged up on by toxic male energy. But the comments weren't buying it anymore. Even her old defenders were quiet, because deep down, they knew. She'd built her castle on lies, and now the foundation had crumbled. As for me, I didn't celebrate. Not loudly. But one evening, I hiked up to my favorite spot, an overlook with a wide view of the valley below, and sat there until the sun dipped behind the hills. No music, no phone, no noise, just the wind, and the knowledge that for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying a weight that didn't belong to me. I wasn't the villain in someone else's play. I wasn't the scapegoat. I wasn't invisible. I had stood up, told the truth, and watched the truth do what it always does. It didn't roar. It didn't need to. It whispered, and the world listened. She wanted to ruin my name. I gave her the chance. She ruined her own.